and July, just within 3 months. It's a lot of money, 9 billion. Have you found out whether it's still in the accounts, or has KEMSA used that money? And why did it take too long, towards the tail of the year? That's when the UHC money was given to KEMSA. I want to open it to members, and can see Honorable Koros, yes. Dr. Dahil Duale, Professor and Owino, or Captain Rueda. You'll also take the opportunity to introduce yourself as you ask your question, including Honorable Duale. Karibu. Yes, proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. So I want to ask something, the PS, both the PS and the CS. What is the relationship between your two offices in terms of communication, consultations, and also, because I'm asking this because I've seen there have been a lot of communication between the CS office and KEMSA. But what I want to ask the PS, did you use consult the CS in all these communications? This also will arrive also to another question. Bwana CS, we saw after this issue of COVID problem, I mean the KEMSA problem when it was in public domain, we saw some changes, some restructuring in the Ministry of Health. We saw the president, he did some reshuffles, and then later on he halted the reshuffles. Bwana CS, what was your role in this? Were you the one who was advising the president for cover-up, or what was the issue? Madam PS, I wish this is the only court you have. It is like, after all, these COVID millionaires will still sacrifice you. You saw what had happened. If I were you, you better tell this court, this house, the truth. You could be knowing a lot of things. Madam PS, among these COVID billionaires, who did approach you or reach you for tender interference or tender favoring? Can you kindly tell us? Because we are seeing there is something between your office and the office of the CS. There's something. And somebody will be sacrificed. We want to know if there were clearly consultation between your office and the office of the CS. And if it was there, if it means one will be sacrificed, supposed to be both of you to go. We want to know clearly if there was clearly communication and consultation.
Your point is clear.
Chair, I think, yeah.
Honorable Koros, thank you very much. Professor, was it Professor number 2, or was it? I can come to Dr. Dahil.
Okay, thank you, Chair. First of all, let me introduce myself, Dr. Mohammed Dahil Duale, member of the Health Committee and also member of Parliament for the DAP constituency.
And I would request you put up your mask as you do your submission.
Okay.
Thank you.
Honorable Minister, first of all, I want to inform everybody that I was a victim of COVID, and I was in hospital for 42 days. Thank you so much. That 5 days I was on oxygen, and 7 days I was in ICU. So COVID is really real. And fortunately, my bill was paid by the Parliamentary Service Commission, but I don't know how many Kenyans will have the same privilege, because close to 4 million shillings was paid by the insurance which covers our service. So let me just go straight to the question. I thank the PS for the presentation. Madam PS, one thing I note in the presentation is that KEMSA was procuring things which they did not have money, according to the correspondence. Because the first thing they did was to write directly to Treasury requesting for funds, and the PS Treasury referred the matter back to you. And the 2-point-something billion, first of all, we would like to know, did KEMSA actually pay for that procurement, and who requested for them to procure those supplies? I also know that in the letter, there is information that they said they had instructions about who to give and so on. Now, that information, of course, you had asked them to provide. But from your own, maybe there are some documentation which are not available. Do you know, were there other forces from elsewhere who are trying to force those people, and you might have that information, because it will be very important to know. Finally, to the CS, Bwana Waziri, I do know that you have talked about reform for KEMSA. We also have serious issues with the NHIF. I happen to have been here the last parliament and now here, and we have been talking about all this for all this time. You are probably the third minister who we are dealing with, maybe perhaps fourth minister, and it has been left at that point. Do you think that it will be possible for you to achieve a reform of those institutions in your tenure or in the next 2 years, whatever time, so that we don't end up with this kind of issue? Because I think these are really related to reforms of these institutions, both of them, which we have serious issues of malpractice. Thank you so much.
Honorable Joyce, I'll come to you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to appreciate the PS for the elaborate submission she has made. And
I'll also remind you to put up your mask.
It's okay, Chair. For the elaborate submission she has made, and the flow, I think, is so clear to me, including the annexes. I've been able to follow them clearly. What surprises me, Honorable Chair, is the way KEMSA misled this committee, because that is the information that came to the committee, and it's the information that is carried out there in the media and in the public, that instructions were given as to who should be given tenders and at how much. It's now clear from the presentation made that it's KEMSA themselves that really initiated the communication on the proposal and the list of maybe pre-qualified suppliers that they had. And they again gave the rationalized budget as advised, and this is what prompted the ministry. That is to my understanding. And then the other thing that surprises me is the way KEMSA bypasses the mother ministry in asking such a huge amount of money. 5 billion is no small money from Treasury without the ministry knowing. One of the issues that is going out there is a company called Kilg that is associated with senior politicians in this country. I've tried to look at the list given by KEMSA, although the prints are small, and we are told that therefore it's in the details, but I haven't seen that company. Maybe the PS could also shed some light if she's in the know of what really that refers to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Professor. Mohammed.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Madam PS, for actually going through the detailed queries and questions and matters that we have raised earlier and you've responded to. But objectively speaking, investigations will go so far and painful That must be known by Kenyans, and that must be known by the culprits, and that must be known by all public officers. And therefore, it is far worse than the messy mess that we have seen over the messy mess saga that we have seen over the years. It will be a relentlessly painful one on this matter, I swear. We are not yet out of the woods as per the COVID pandemic. But if you look at Table 1, which shows a cumulative expenditure of 9.6 billion already spent on UHC between March 11th to July 11th, 2020, it becomes obvious that we need to ask questions on this, that was about UHC. But can you tell us how much of the 9.6 billion was expended on the COVID emergency, other than the normal expenditure that you have authorized for UHC, budgeted, that is? Can you tell us what more funds are being expended and how much? That is under the COVID-19, under the UHC, anything related to COVID-19, if there is any. Because the cartels are still living. The result of the cover-up of COVID-19 looting by the living cartels still exists. So we must be treading the two thin fine lines, the UHC and the COVID-19. It might be unfortunate that Kenyans will know that we are not going to focus on COVID-19 only. We will focus on UHC. Let Kenyans know that we will not allow any cover-up by any cartels or anybody else out there. This is a very objective question. PS, tell us, you've told us that KEMSA is a different entity from the Ministry of Health. To some extent, you did. PS, tell us, who regulates KEMSA? Is it the Ministry of Tourism or the Ministry of Health? And as the accounting officer yourself, the Ministry of Health should definitely oversight KEMSA, I believe. And I will refer you with knowledge here. Gazette, Kenya Gazette, that is the 23rd June 2017 Supplement Act, reads, PS, can I bring to your attention, for the purpose of section 15(1)(b), the Cabinet Secretary, of course you're not, but you are the accounting, and the Cabinet Secretary also involved in this, shall form directorates to deal with the following matters: medical services, nursing, pharmaceutical services, public health, and administrative services. But that's not where I'm heading. I'm heading to B. That was A. B says, notwithstanding paragraph A, form other directorates based on policy priorities areas in consultation with the Director General. I remain guided, but does it mean that KEMSA was actually established under that clause? Further, can I read to you, Madam PS? Read the KEMSA Act, October 31st, 2016, which formed KEMSA. That is KEMSA Act 2013. That must be read, and that must be explained well to us. The boundaries between KEMSA and the Ministry of Health. There are many Kenyans who are laymen and women who may not understand this, but we must read the law through the fine lines. Chair, I want to stop here, but I want to say something. You said that MOH has not directly procured any COVID-19 related items. KEMSA is a saga under MOH, and you are the accounting officer for Ministry of Health. Does this mean hands off the wheel, and we are left to ride on the highway, or Kenyans are left to ride on the highway? Who takes responsibility for what? It is obviously this comes under the stewardship of yourself, of your office, And it is important that Kenyans are aware quite clearly that despite the thin lines, people should take responsibility for accounting on the institutions that come under them. I will finalize, Chair. Treasury referred KEMSA to the MOH, especially directly to you as the accounting officer, meaning you're directly mandated. If you look at the letter dated 11th of August, 2020, that you've written to KEMSA, CEO KEMSA, which you said that we wish to advise that funds for universal health coverage should not be utilized in payment for delivered COVID-19 emergency supplies, etc. Definitely, that brings me to a point that it becomes obvious to my mind and to my attention that obviously this letter was dated on the 11th of August, yet the agreement on procurement between the ministry and KEMSA should have started earlier, around March, I believe, or so. Why should a letter go after 6 months or so? I rest my case, but before I do that, Chair, the National Task Force for COVID-19 must be called, and they must come and tell us more about international donations, about the services that were done, and who was responsible for what. I appeal to the committee to call the National Task Force for COVID-19, because this will be a very painful journey for everybody on behalf of the poor Kenyans who have died because of COVID-19 and who continue to suffer because of COVID-19. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll go to Captain Rueda, then I'll come to you, Honorable Wino. I can see Senior, I can see your hand. Allow me to give you at the tail end. Is that okay? I know you have been sitting for long, but because you're a friend of the committee, let me give Captain Owino, then I'll come to you, Senior.
Asante, Chairman. Kwa majina naitwa Captain Rueda Mohamed, County MP Lamu. Mwanzo ningependa kuomba msamaha, nimekuja kuchelewa kwa sababu nilitoka Kiunga jana, nilikuwa safarini ndio nimefika. Mimi nataka mwanzo kumpongeza katibu mkuu kwa uwasilishaji wake mzuri. Ukiona tunauliza maswali, tunauliza kwa uchungu mwingi, kwa sababu kama hujaambukizwa na COVID-19, basi umeathirika na COVID-19. Hata kabla haijakuja Kenya, ilipoanza tu China, Lamu wiki hiyo hiyo, wale lobster walitoka kwa kilo moja ni 6,000 ikawa 600. Kwa hivyo katibu mkuu ilikuwa anauliza hizi barua, sijui kama mna system ya kuonyesha, manake hizi barua za zingine zilizoandikwa kutoka kwa KEMSA na katibu mkuu mwenzako wa Treasury, zote zimeonyesha kwamba kuna ile muhuri wa received. Hizi zingine zako zote ziko hapa, lakini hazionyeshi kwamba ulizituma kweli siku hiyo au ni zimeandikwa baada ya kutuletea tu hapa. Swali langu ni hilo tu, asante.
Owino.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, let me thank God for Dr. Dahir, who has gone through this experience and is here with us. Chair, this disease is true. In my constituency, we've just lost a very prominent person in 3 days because of the complications. It's no longer restricted to the lungs. It spread fast to the heart muscles. And people now drop and die without proper diagnosis. So that we are talking of a disaster here. But having said that, let me thank the PS. It couldn't have been more clearer than this, and that is why the meetings like this is very important, so that Kenyans can get the truth, the facts as they are. It appears to me, in all this, you are swatting flies. But if, and I read it first, if the board was doing its work, then there will be no jumping to the treasury, there will be no jumping here and there, because it appears to me, Chair, we are kind of dealing with a run-amok child here, who does things and then the ministry say, no, you can't do that. So what we are trying to do, CS, is, and it came from you, and I'm happy. We are looking on how we can plug off the lacuna, either whether it is in the regulations and policies or in the State Corporation Act, that can reform this. And remember, the governors are also crying, because it is here that we fought. It was a heated debate, that we make KEMSA a one-stop shop for all medical supplies for institutions of government. And now the the governors are on their arms. We may have to relook even the amendment itself. And the other day, Chair, you can remember, I did ask whether KEMSA has still the capacity. We're talking of capacity of HR, how they run and all this, to continue to be main supplier. Remember, it evolved from medical stores earlier days, and that is what it used to do to the government. And now they have incorporated the business model, which could be also inhabiting greed and attitude of doing business more than the public good. So all this we have to wrestle with. PS, I want to show you, maybe you don't have this document, but I'm just trying to say, when the ministry sets policy or regulations, is it followed with? There's a document here which came from your office, and it's an old document. I respect authority to incur expenditure. Having worked with the government for a long time, I know it should be respected the way it is. So I read it for you, but you may not have it, but you will reflect on it. Number one, it was written on 16th of June about the 1.5 billion, which this House.
Why is that document originated
It was in the
from?
KEMSA.
Or from the submission of KEMSA?
Yeah, it was the KEMSA. That's why I'm saying you may
okay,
not have
well
it.
noted. And if you'd be able to refer, might be for the purposes of record, if it's an attachment 1B or annex. But if you don't have the details, you can still proceed. But I needed to know the document, the origin.
I know she don't have it, but I just bring it to the point I want to make here is that it was 1.5 billion which this House approved, because we believe that testing is key to know how aggressive this virus is moving around. Now, in the AIE, which you wrote and was prepared by Samson Ogalo, you said clearly that this being funds for procurement of test kits and reagents, which we approved for in this House to be done. Now, when it comes to implementation by KEMSA, they have added something which you can tell us whether was incorporated in that or not. They have 6 items. The 5 of them are testing kits and reagents. That one I have no problem. But number 4, gloves, medium size, 100 packets, 1 million. See, what I want to bring to your attention now is the disconnect. You give an authority and it is implemented the other way. That is why we are talking about reforms. Is it enough to give that, and when it is not done, what happens? Because if you ask me, gloves is not a test kit or a reagent. If it were to be included, then the PS would have also included in the authority to incur. And lastly, in that line, it says clearly how this is come. You will be, this is in the, you will be held personally responsible if you incur expenditure without proper authority or excess of the amount cited. So it's a crime already if you do that according to the AIE. So CS and PS, what I'm trying to say is that we need to look where there's a problem. This is not just witch hunting, but to make this institution better, and also to make you sleep. I know you guys are not sleeping because you try to kill fires here and there, and it's quite a lot of work. And we look at you on the COVID as well to give us what is going on. So lastly, I just want to say, if there is something you are seeing as a ministry that is making your work difficult with this agency, I think this is the time to pick them so that we can pick them up. There are also others which I have seen in the State Corporation Act, which we will look into as a committee and, if possible, amend them. Otherwise, thank you for a good job, PS.
Thank you.
For clarifying. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to confirm for purpose of record on that attachment of KEMSA, it was Appendix 1A and 1B. Senior, Honorable Jimmy Angweni.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me a chance as a friend to ask one or two questions. One. Okay. One. Could the minister or the PS tell us whether when KEMSA made a request from Treasury for additional funding, was the board involved? Was the board of KEMSA approve that request? Two, since it was communicated to the ministry that this KEMSA is trying to get funds through outside the system, outside the ministry, why did you leave them continue working there to make more messes? Why didn't you get rid of them immediately? You didn't have to wait for ESCC or DCI to come and to ask them to vacate positions so further investigation can be done. And finally, I've seen that your tests have been reducing over the period in the last 1 or 2 weeks. Is it because you don't have testing kits, or is it because you have exhausted the people you want to test? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the CS and PS is your chance to
Thank you very
respond.
Much. Asante sana. Let me,
and so that we don't lose people. CS, you know you are a politician like us, so would like we summarize so that we don't lose the numbers.